All right. I think that we will go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for being here. Hello, Rain. Hello, Katie. Hello, Free Blackwell and Stesha and everyone who's sharing in the chat. Thanks. Um, we are going to move forward in a second here, but I just want to say a quick hello to Katie and Duran. Thanks, y'all. So excited to be doing this. My name's Emily. I work for Appalachian Sustainable Development, and we are really thrilled to be hosting the Ask an Agroforester webinar series again. I also just want to thank Katie Trazo, who's here with me. You'll hear from her in a minute, but she's also going to be running all the background slide changes. And if anyone needs technical help, anything like that, you can reach out to her through that email, or you can hit her up in the chat. And then, of course, we've got our guest of honor, Duron Chavis, who we'll hear from in just a few minutes. So slide, please. Thank you. All right. First things first, just Zoom logistics. Before we get into anything else, in case anybody's unfamiliar, you right now as an audience member are muted and your camera is off automatically. So I know it can feel scary if you can't see those controls, but fret not. You are just sort of, this is like a one-way broadcast. You get to just kind of be a passive viewer for the moment. There's also a chat function that some folks have found. Hi, Sam, and hi, Raymond and Amy and Margie. And so you can use that to talk to each other. You can direct chat to someone by clicking the little to box and changing that, or you can chat with everybody. There's also a Q&A function. As we're presenting and questions come up, please ask any questions that you would like Duran to answer in the actual Q&A, because then we can access them there really easily as the hosts. Also, if you keep an eye on the Q&A, you might see something that's of interest to you. You can upvote it. You can put a little thumbs up. Let us know you're extra excited to see him answer that. You can also type your own information if you have it. So that can be a nice other interactive way to participate here. Lastly, if you need captions, you can hit the little live transcript button in the bottom. It's a little CC. If you don't see that, you might need to click on the little 3 dots that says more, and then you should be able to access captions, and it will auto-generate. So those aren't perfect, but they're really great. Even if you're just somewhere, that can be a really helpful thing. So that's the basics. This session is being recorded. We will have this archived on our website through the YouTube platform, and it's going to get shared out to everybody who registered. So just note that we are being recorded. Slide, please, Katie. All right, so here's where we're headed tonight. We're just going to talk for a minute about ASD and our other partners that are supporting the webinar. We're going to do a little poll so we know who our audience is. And then we're going to introduce Duran, our speaker, who is going to give a presentation. And then we're going to dig into the Q&A, which is the super fun part. And mixed into that, we'll have some quick fire questions just for funsies. So Appalachian Sustainable Development, where I am very privileged to be an agroforester. Our mission is to build a thriving regional food and agriculture system that creates healthy communities, respects the planet, and cultivates profitable opportunities for Appalachians. I'm not going to say a ton about ASD, except for that it's a really great, growing, awesome organization. You can find all kinds of information about us on our website, everything from school garden programs to food box programs to the Appalachian Herb Hub that helps aggregate and sell herbal products. And we're just doing all kinds of great stuff and growing all the time. So one thing, if you're here, I suspect you might be interested in something called Agroforestry Trainings for Natural Resources Professionals. These also can be valuable if you're not strictly a natural resources professional. They're just really good detailed info. But we have a set of trainings that there's an online module that's really great. It's a whole set of modules in all the major agroforestry practices. And there's a set of free programming, and then there's also some paid programming. So definitely check those out. You can go to learnagroforestry.com/professionals to visit that programming and access those classes. And we also, for folks in the region, have field days associated with those. So if you're looking to like go even deeper, you can join us for some of the field days and see what that's about, see what the practices look like on the ground, and learn from practitioners about how those things work. And I'm going to hand it over to Katie to talk about our partnerships and how we got here today. And I just want to say a quick shout out and a thank you to Katie, who really helped us, has helped so much behind the scenes and is helping us access funding for this. We're really proud to be able to offer stipends to our guest speakers this year to really compensate folks for their time. And she's really helped make this a collaborative effort. So thank you, Katie.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Just real briefly, we're really excited to be helping support the Ask an Agroforester series this winter. You'll see all these partners are part of bringing this specific series of Ask an Agroforester, the winter series, about. And just wanted to share briefly one project that's feeding this along with the agroforestry trainings for natural resource professionals is a SARE professional development project called Expanding the Agroforestry Regional Knowledge Exchange Network in Virginia. And all these partners are part of this work to really support ag educators and land managers through coordinated trainings and network development. And so online trainings are one piece, and then in-person trainings that Emily mentioned, the agroforestry trainings for natural resource professionals are some offerings that are going to be happening later in the year, which we'll share with you all about. And if you're wondering what is the Ark Exchange, it's ultimately a peer-to-peer learning network. So it's for farmers, NGOs, universities, technical service providers, and ag educators to connect, to share information about agroforestry. This could include farm tours, webinars, recorded videos, but really hearing from the folks on the ground doing the work. The footprint is the Appalachian states and beyond. And if you'd like to be part of this specific initiative, you can join the listserv. I'll put this information in the chat, and there'll also be a website coming soon, and some offerings like farm tours coming up as well. And so you'll notice that there are so many partners. You saw the slide, over 12, 15 folks really bringing this together, and a number of funding streams. But we want to recognize that the Ark Exchange, the regional aspect of it, was initiated, and it is coordinated by Virginia Tech Forest Resources and Environmental Conservation, John Mansell, Ian Nichols, and they're doing that through the Catalyzing Agroforestry Grants Program, which I'll mention briefly in a second. And then folks with ASD are partnering on that as well, but there's another funding stream they lead, which is what Emily just mentioned, agroforestry trainings for natural resource professionals. And again, the expanding Ark Exchange in Virginia, which is the SARE project I mentioned. So this is just to give you a little sense of how this programming came together and really the intricate web of partnerships that's making this work possible. We wanted to let you know, in terms of the Catalyzing Agroforestry Grants Program, that's what initiated ultimately the Ark Exchange, because a number of grants were given out to farmers to develop demonstration farms. And since that's built to expand people who haven't received grants either, but anyone who wants to participate. But we want to let you know that this direct financial support is available, and it can provide funding per acre for agroforestry practices for farmers. And the folks who are part of this, part of the agreement is to share lessons learned. You can do that virtually or through farm tours, but that's part of the knowledge exchange network. And we wanted to especially let you know that the application review is April 1st. So if you're interested in doing this, make sure to get an application in by April 1st. And I will put that information in the chat with the link where you can access that. And I'm going to pass it on to Emily, and we're going to get started here with Duran.
All right, I am going to launch a poll. If y'all could please go ahead and answer this. It helps for our reporting metrics. It helps us know how many people we've reached in different sectors. It also helps Duran know what kind of audience he's speaking to. Let's see, we've got about half of folks have weighed in, so I'll give it another 30 seconds. But this is really useful for us. Anyone in the nonprofit sector understands how important it is to track the folks you're reaching. So All right. 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, I got one more person in the countdown. And I'm gonna end it. So we'll share the results here. We've got farmers, NRPs, both, and some others. So if you're in the other box, please share in the chat who you are, what you're up to, where you're doing it. But it looks like we have a strong contingent of farmers and NRPs, and probably some folks doing some other really interesting things too. So, all right, I'm gonna stop sharing that. And okay, thanks for bearing with us. On to the good stuff. It's all good stuff, but we know that you're really here for Duran. So I want to just introduce y'all to Duron Chavis, who I have known for a little while. I feel like we've kind of been bumping around the same circles and met kind of within the sphere of permaculture. And I, yeah, I just I love whenever I bump into this guy. And anytime I ask anyone in the Richmond area or even much beyond that, just kind of about what's going on in the ag scene, it never fails. Duron's name always comes up. So he's definitely just a part of so many projects, and I'm really inspired by the breadth of the work that he's doing. But I'm going to take a second and share his bio. So Chavis creates synergy between corporate social responsibility, public policy, and traditional grassroots activism that builds community capacity for transformation. Transforming communities is an act that must take place through the community itself. By crafting collaborative approaches to collective impact, community work and personal evolution merge for sustainable systemic impact. From Happily Natural Day to poverty mitigation to urban agriculture to racial equity, Chavis articulates the role that cultural identity plays in sustainable community wellness. He challenges organizations and institutions to think outside of silos and to confront conversations of race and class courageously and authentically. So just a powerful bio right off the start. And also, Duran has now been serving on our advisory group to Katie's advisory group to the Sarah Ark Exchange project. So it's really nice. It's been great to sort of like formalize that connection. I really appreciated that. So with that, thank you so much for being here, Duran. I want to go ahead and hand it over to you to say what you're up to, what you're about. And I know we're going to see a lot of beautiful pictures. So welcome. Thanks again for being here.
Yes. What's up? What's up? How's everyone? Okay. Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity to share tonight. We're kind of doing double time. I'm here with my Central Virginia Urban Farm Fellows who are in the room. But we're also gonna be kind of chopping it up with you guys in the digital world about urban agroforestry and what that means for our work in relationship to climate justice and food justice. Can I share my screen? Is that all good? Can I do that now?
Yep,
Yeah,
go for it.
yeah.
Okay, let's see what we got going on. All right. All right. So just a little bit more about me. I'm the founder director of an organization called Happily Natural Day. Happily Natural Day is dedicated to holistic health and wellness, social change through transforming the built environment for food justice and climate resiliency. We manage 8 urban gardens and farms across the region. We also train community members in the design and installation and stewardship of urban green space. And lastly, we work heavily towards accessing land to make land tenure accessible for Black and brown farmers, whether they're veteran farmers, established farmers, or beginning farmers. Let's see, the best time to plant a tree was yesterday. So what you're gonna see today is a bunch of stuff related to some of the spaces that we've developed. But before I get into that, the work that we are doing in the Richmond region is centered around the scars of systemic racism that exists across this country, but explicitly in the city of Richmond, Virginia. We have been focusing on developing urban green space, especially trees in formerly redlined neighborhoods. And for those that may not be aware, just the shorthand of this is that back in the 1950s, you know, racist policy discriminated against Black and brown communities, preventing them from access to mortgages, loans, and financing, investment. And as a result, those communities are now experiencing high levels of disparities in health. And then just in terms of the investments in place for what we're talking about today, tree canopy, they are lacking in that thing very much so. So when we look at redlining, the areas that are outlined in red, you know, those are the areas that we've been targeting as far as our work in developing farms, orchards, and etc. This is a important map because this overlays directly with the redlining situation. These are areas that are much hotter as a result of the lack of tree canopy. So in formerly redlined neighborhoods, what we find are larger swathes of impervious surface, lots of concrete, asphalt, and etc. And lots of areas that are barren, grass, but there's no trees. So as a result, these areas are hotter, and that heat, some people are calling it urban heat island effect. But we call it an emergency because people are dying because it's too hot in the summertime, right? You know, these maps also correlate to higher indexes of emergency 911 calls for respiratory distress, heat stroke, and etc. So literally the block is hot. You know, we talk about areas that were not redlined having established tree canopies. In the city of Richmond, it's no surprise that you go into the wealthier areas of the city and it's laden with trees that were planted 100 years ago or even longer before that. But in the areas where Black and brown communities are, it's not the case. Also, in addition to this lack of tree canopy, we also have lack of access to healthy food. So this is a map of the areas that sell food. And as you can see, you know, if we go back to the redlining map, these are pretty much identical. These are the places that you can get quote unquote food. But these are the places where there are actual grocery stores, which, you know, is not as many of those areas inside of the formerly redlined neighborhoods. So those two maps, the redlining map, well, the three maps, the redlining map, the lack of healthy food map, the urban heat island map is the data that we use in order to identify where we're going to invest time developing urban farms and gardens, and more explicitly, where we're planting trees, right? For the ecosystem services, but also to increase access to healthy food. So we planted a bunch of trees in the when we first started, in the 12 years that we've been doing this. We started our first garden in 2012. And so I'm going to show you a bunch of photos of those places so you can get an idea of the size and scope, and that none of the interventions in terms of our tree planting or the agroforestry that we're doing, and none of it looks the same every time. It's always responsive to the particular community that we're working in or particular context, but our goal is always to get as many trees in the ground as possible. So I'm just go shoot through these. You see, I only got 15 minutes and I'm already done. How long? I don't know. 5?
You're doing great. Keep going.
Okay. Okay.
Great.
All right. Somebody gotta let me know if I gotta shut off because I you know, we try to get into this. So this is Sankofa Community Orchard. We plant a lot of pears, a lot of Asian pears. First of all, we plant a lot of fruit trees. So some folks, when they talk about agroforestry, like their conversation is about shade trees or, you know, they're doing nut trees. They might even doing flowering varieties. We focus on fruits and nuts because we're trying to solve for two problems at once: the lack of healthy food, as well as the heat island effect situation. So while we could go plant a bunch of shade trees in the community, I'm like, well, if I'm gonna buy a tree, let me buy a tree that's doing two things at the same time. It's gonna feed people in the community as well as gonna address this heat stuff, but also gonna address like the stormwater management issue, which I didn't talk about, but that's another component of this. Having looking at trees as green infrastructure in the city context is critical. And then lastly, air quality and water quality. So again, this is our approach. Everyone else, you could do whatever you want. You know, you can plant whatever type of trees you feel is necessary in your context, but we're being specific to the intersection of lack of healthy food and lack of urban tree canopy in the city. So we plant a lot of trees, a lot of Asian pears because of their resistance to fire blight. Well, in the case of in all the cases that we've been planting trees in, the most productive have been Shinsheki pears, Red Anjou, Shanjuro. Those varieties have treated us very well in Richmond. I don't know, it might be different for you where you might be at, but you'll see a lot of these in the slides to come. So this is Sankofa Community Orchard. It's our 5-acre urban farm on Richmond's south side, which boasts 120, a little bit over 120 fruit trees, as well as some alley cropping and things like that. I think that's Sankofa again. Sankofa again. Red Anjou. That's Sankofa again. This is McDonough Community Garden. McDonough Community Garden is the first community garden we started. This is a 3,000 square foot city triangle. So in the city of Richmond, there's a lot of these green triangles that as you go through neighborhoods that are just green space. And so we took this one over, developed a traditional community garden, raised bed plots, but we also planted fruit trees on the borders. This space now boasts 25 fruit trees in the small, and this is literally the smallest garden that we manage. I might have another picture in here, show you another way, but we did this as a like an archway. So when you walk down the sidewalk, there's probably like 12 trees on both sides of the sidewalk, with all different types, pears, peaches, plums, apples, cherries, and things. This is Battery Park. Yes, this is Battery Park. Battery Park was one of our earlier training programs, our iteration. So our training program allows us to teach people how to develop spaces, but also as a part of our training, these are place-based interventions that we're also transforming spaces. So Battery Park, Popular Park, there's a pool there, playgrounds, and I think we planted about 15, maybe closer to 20 trees in Battery Park. This is back in this is before the pandemic, like 2000 and I want to say 19, something like that. So this is well established at this point. It's about 5 years old in terms of the fruit growth. This is Gilpin Court, one of the city's housing projects. Gilpin Court is another heat island. It's most notable because this used to be part of Greater Jackson Ward. Jackson Ward was destroyed as a result of urban renewal, the highway construction, I-95 that bisected Jackson Ward. Gilpin Court, as a result, lack of trees, lots of streetscape, no healthy food, right? So this community farm is the Charles S. Gilpin Community Farm, and support of veteran activist Lily Estes, who's passed away. Our commitment to her in one of our classes, we planted like 15 fruit trees in this space as well. This is Richmond Behavioral Health Authority. The north side location is a drug rehab. So it's basically you can stay here. It's on campus, people that are going through treatment for their illness, for the drug addictions or what have you, get to stay here. But there's also a back campus, this huge, like 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 acre green space. And so part of our collaboration with them in like 2017 included the design and implementation of a green space for their residents to participate in culinary arts and have healthy food. And we planted like 20 fruit trees in that space as well. Again, lots of cherries, lots of Asian pears, persimmons, peaches, plums, and etc. This is Broad Rock Community Garden. I'm a resident of the city. I'm native to the city, so Broad Rock is where I grew up. This triangular park is right down the street from really challenged neighborhood, right? Got low-income housing, just a lot of lack of development. Southside in general has faced lack of development, but this area is especially. Broad Rock Community Garden was one of our class projects. We not only developed this shade structure that you see in the cut, but also the permeable pathways through there. But the trees, I think we planted like 18, maybe 20 fruit trees in that space as well. So there's, again, going back to it, pears, peaches, apples. You even see a banana tree up in the mix over there. This is important space because, there's a huge homelessness population in this area as well. So having those fruits from off of the trees has been very beneficial for the community. This is the space when it's a little bit more lush. And then you can see in the understory, we're also planting perennials, shrubs, and etc., kind of establishing the food forest in this space for all my permaculture enthusiasts. Oh, this is McDonough. I was saying earlier how we have designed this space where, walk through down the sidewalk and there's fruit trees on both sides. So that left-hand side, that's the, what do they call it? The hell strip. They call it the hell strip. I don't know why they call it hell strip, but whatever, somebody called it hell strip. So that area is owned by the city. So, I sometimes ask for forgiveness rather than permission. And so since we had the permit for the space and, we were responsible for cutting the grass anyway. So we said, all right, boom, we're just going to plant trees in the hell strip. And nobody said anything to us on this site, but we did it somewhere else and people had something to say. So just FYI, if you plant trees in the hell strip, city might have something to say to you. But, again, I ask for forgiveness rather than permission.
2-minute warning, Duran, just FYI.
Okay, 2 minutes. So yeah, so
Yep.
all right, we'll speed it up. These are plums at McDonough. Jesus Christ. These are peaches at McDonough. Hold up. Oh, I ain't got time to share it. I want to share this video.
Go ahead and share. We'll
All
make
right.
it work.
All right. This is me harvesting pears from fruit trees that I planted at our high school. This is red Anjou pears.
Duran, I don't know if there's supposed to be sound. We don't hear sound, just so you know.
Okay, cool. It don't matter. People here can hear the sound. Y'all like that? That was so yeah, that was us harvesting pears. And this is what we're working on right now. This is Trinity Family Life. We planted 44 fruit trees here on MLK Day. And then this is Sankofa, of course, there's 120 fruit trees here. This is the Bensley Agri-Hub, where we'll be establishing an affordable housing neighborhood with farms under the existing tree canopy, as well as the incubator farm. And this is kind of a rendering for that. So yeah, that's my time. That was
You're right on time.
I feel like I sped through that and it might not have been as most impactful. But if you want my slides, I can share them to y'all. I don't know.
Yeah, if you would share them with us to send out to the folks who registered, that'd be amazing. I'm sure that everyone would love to look back at those. Oh, thank you so much, man. It's just so great to see all the work that you've been up to, and I've been able to visit Sankofa and the Bensley Agrihood, and it's been so inspiring. So, um, yeah, thanks for sharing it with us. Okay, so we are about to dive into the Q&As. I don't think I said this earlier. We'll do the Q&A in two halves. We'll do the first half as like curated Q&A from stuff that people submitted ahead of time. And for future webinars, please use that submit function ahead of time so that we can get some of those questions in the bag. And then we will transition to just like the live Q&A. And there may be time for people to unmute and ask questions at that point too, if that's more your preference. But first, we do this fun little quick fire round of questions that don't really have anything to do with anything that we're talking about, but it's important to have fun. So and we'll learn a little bit. I do like to ask everybody this. What's your favorite farm tool, Duran?
Oh shit. Broad fork.
Ooh, nice choice. How is that sometimes I imagine that being really rough sometimes with some of the soils you're working on and like old compacted lots.
Uh, um, nah, yeah. I mean, the broad fork is fun because it's leverage. It's like it's a case in point of work smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
I just step on it and walk forward, and just step on it and walk forward. And for me, it's easy, and I watch other people like try to do it the other way, like you sweat, but I just step on it and keep it and walk forward. So
It's a tool and a metaphor.
yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna take a hard left turn here. What's your favorite condiment?
Oh, favorite condiment. I like it when they mix the tartar sauce with the ketchup and the sauce.
Oh yeah, the
Yeah.
the mystery sauce.
Real face looking crazy. I like Captain D's, man. I go to Captain D's. That's my favorite. So I mix it up.
There you go.
Best of both.
What's your favorite like lesser known vegetable? Like not a tomato, not a carrot, not an onion. Like what's your favorite obscure vegetable?
Um, obscure vegetable. Um, I'll say sorrel. I say
Ooh,
yeah, sorrel. People don't really know about sorrel. Like
yeah.
not the hibiscus, the calyx for the flower. I like that. I think sometimes people are like, oh, it grows here, or they didn't know anything about it.
Yeah. Nice, nice. So folks, if you're not familiar with sorrel, look that up because y'all can grow it and it's delicious. Okay. All right. So we're gonna move into grown-up questions. So you've talked some about the urban heat island effect, and do you want to just say any more like specifically about agroforestry approach to that? I mean, is it just broad scale, like let's get in as many trees as possible, or do you have kind of a specific approach to that?
Well, with the urban heat island effect, it's critical to get community engagement. It's in terms of supporting the trees once they're planted. There is a whole phenomenon like communities that haven't asked for trees, even though this is an issue. They haven't asked for the trees, so people come and plant the trees, and then the trees die because they don't come back to care for them.
Mm,
So
yeah,
create space for people that don't understand this phenomenon and getting them trained in arboriculture 101. Those are transferable skills, and then helping them understand like how to care for the trees on the front end, and then like literally giving them the money to buy the trees so they can plant them is the best practice. Instead of just going buying a bunch of trees and then going into community and planting the trees, and then when they die, you're like, oh, the people didn't care about the trees. Like now they didn't even know they. I mean, what?
yeah,
Yeah. So that's a big deal. The other piece about it is that use your data. We use the redlining data to identify where this stuff is, but sometimes your city might have an index of where all the trees have been planted. Like in the city, like your urban forestry department should have been keeping record of what city trees have been planted. So you can ask them like, where are there not trees? And then that kind of serve as a part of the work. And so I'm talking specifically from an urban context. So,
Mm-hmm.
the rural folks, like if you're trying to do this, you might have different reasonings, but we're coming at it from a social justice, environmental injustice perspective. So it's not really about us growing trees for timber or
Right.
saying things like that. We're like, yo, this is the issue in the community. It's hot, stormwater management, and food. So we're planting these trees for, those purposes. So using the data and then engaging the community before you do it is like the critical piece of the puzzle.
Perfect. Thank you for that. That leads right into the next question, which is just, can you talk a little bit about stormwater management and the other environmental benefits of trees in the city beyond just shade and food?
Yes. So because of all that impervious surface and because of climate change, when it rains hard, it rains harder. And then also because it's been dry for significant amount of time, and people have planted all of this grass in the areas that are not asphalt, the water basically is like a pan on the ground. And so all the water is going into its trying to find its lowest point. So stormwater management is an issue for a number of reasons. One, because it might flood your neighborhood, but then two, if you live in a city where the sewer system is archaic, like Richmond has a combined sewer overflow system, which means that the same water from your house when you pee, poop, and wash your dishes is going into the sewer with the water from when you wash your car when it rains. You know what I'm saying? And so when water combines and goes to the wastewater treatment plant, if it overflows, if it's too much water, it'll overflow the wastewater treatment plant, and all that water goes into your river. So prescription pills, fecal matter, Armor All, you know what I'm saying? You name it, it's all going
all the things.
river. So so the stormwater management on that level, like us planting the trees is a method of installing green infrastructure. Basically, the trees act like a sponge and soak the water, keep the water from going into any of the tributaries that lead to the river. And so we need more of that in cityscapes, because all of the roofs that you have in your city, all of that stuff is feeding the wastewater treatment plant. You know what I mean? So if you go to your downtown in Richmond, go to Main Street, go to Lee Street, Jack Street, Broad Street, Scott's Addition, all of these places, when it rains, you see all of that water that's coming off the side of all of that's going to the wastewater treatment facility. And
that's wild.
It's a lot. It's a lot of water.
Yeah.
If y'all seen Scott's Addition, if you're in a call, you from Richmond, if you ever been to Scott's Addition when it's a heavy rain event, that's a lot of water. And so you can imagine that's why they say you can't swim in the James. So the stormwater management work for us is like, okay, well, how do we take these vacant lots, these empty spaces that don't have trees in them, and how do we plant these trees so that they can soak that water up and keep it from getting into the river, so that we can have a healthy, waterway, a healthy Chesapeake Bay, right?
Yeah.
So if you put it like that.
Right. So you told me one of the questions you get the most from folks is just about like what kind of trees to plant. And I know you talked a little bit about varieties, specifically of pears, and how successful that's been in the city. What else? What are your like favorite things to recommend to folks when they're asking you that question?
Doing persimmons.
Mm.
We're doing
Asian, American, both.
Yeah, Asian persimmons. I'm liking now. I'm doing still doing lots of pears. I'm doing Arkansas black apples.
Yeah,
because they're
that was my favorite apple.
Yeah, they're fire blight resistant. So fire blight is an issue. Like in our area, the trees, while they do grow, there's this particular fungal disease that can get on the trees. That's a fire blight. And so you try to find varieties that are resistant to the fire blight so that you can actually get a harvest off of the trees. So
Yes.
the Arkansas black and Asian pears are two varieties. But I mean, I'm also interested in apricots. I'm planting pluots, which is like apricots and plum mix. and apriums, which is apricots and plum mix. Cherries, a lot of cherries is going in the ground. Oh, jujubes.
Nice.
I'm planting jujubes. Jujubes is like the like the little dates, like Asian dates or whatever you want to call them. Oh, and then also like pomegranates are good here too, but they take a long time to produce. But I'm planting pomegranates too. So case in point, this is the reality for anybody that's planting fruit trees. This is a exercise in delayed gratification. You know what I mean? Like you can plant these now, but really, you're looking at like 5-6 years before you really get like a significant harvest. I mean, it'll start to harvest. You probably get able to get some stuff off of the second year, maybe third year, if you plant a mature tree. But the trees that I would that Red on Jew that I was picking off of in the video, I planted that in 2014.
Yeah.
That's like 9 years ago, 10 years ago. And so that thing was, I took 2 burlap, and in 45 minutes, I filled up 2 burlap bags, and I didn't even climb up the tree. I just picking off the sides and whatever was low hanging. You know what I mean? But if I really got a ladder and got up on it, I probably could have filled up like 4 or 5 bags of pears in one fell swoop. So that's how I look at it. I mean, those are faves. I'm not planting peaches no more.
You're over the peaches.
It's been a waste of money because it's like, yo, this is the way that the climate shifts. So peaches, they get hit by the frost, and the frost mess up their schedule for production, the way they drop, when they start to bud and the flowers, stuff like that. If the frost hit it, then that means that it's not going to really produce. So I'm like, I mean, it's cute.
Yeah.
It might hurt, we might get something, but every year you kind of like juggling with whether or not it's going to frost or get too cold and kill the buds on it before it can really produce. So I'm out of that. I'm out of the peach tree business for our client.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's so important to focus on selecting species that like, okay, one are yummy, like you want stuff that tastes good. That's like such an easy community buy-in, but that are regionally appropriate and that aren't going to require so many inputs, because which leads us right in the next question is like, could you talk just about human sector a little bit, and particularly just managing all of the like living infrastructure, all the living capital that you're putting into the ground. And you've got these big harvest windows when it's like you got to be there, and you've got maybe like specific tending windows when you need to prune, or like, and you've got, I think you said 8 or 9 projects now. That's a lot. Like, how are you handling that? How are you wrapping your head around just the people power in these systems?
So first of all, it's been we get treated. First of all, the tree diaper, not to be like advertising a particular product, but the tree gators were cool. But then I got with the homie We Long, with the tree diaper company. He's local. He's Virginia based. The tree diapers have been excellent for us because they literally soak up the water when it rains, and then it slow releases them. So that's been helped us with our watering needs. Instead of us having to fill up a tree gator, slow releasing.
Yeah.
That's been dope. The pruning part, I'm not the best pruner. I'm gonna keep it funky with you. You know what I'm saying? We'll get to it. Try to prune, with a class, like it got a whole crew, and then we'll go out and prune everything that we can find.
That's the best way.
I'm pruning for accessibility and for air circulation more than like, aesthetics or what have you. And then the piece is keeping record, like having some sort of book that's cataloged or that has an index of where we planted what where has been critical. And like going back and being like, okay, well, I know it's this site, this site, this site, this site, and these are the trees that are there, and this is the time that they're gonna produce. Having that in a book somewhere is way better than trying to keep it inside of your head, especially when you person like me, you planted hundreds of trees across the city. It's like I could put a map up and it'd be like boom, 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 boom. But it's important to just know, okay, well, this is the type of trees that I planted, and these are where they are. Like, the plums are in these particular locations. So in this particular time of the year, I know I can go here, and I can go get plums. You know what I'm saying? And then when it's time for cherries, I go here. I know it's cherries. Cherries should be in these places based off of the time of the year. And so in that way, I can kind of like plant it, put the tree diaper down, prune it when I got time, and then I can come back, in a couple of years, or just every, I just I check out on my spaces on a regular anyway, but just I know what's coming when it's coming, and I ain't got to really worry about the watering piece. That's the biggest part, is making sure everything in the beginning stages is getting sufficient water,
Right.
make it through that first year. Get established. And Japanese beetles.
Oh,
So Japanese beetles is a huge problem for any of this. So, making sure you get your milky spore and putting the milky spore down to kind of beat back the Japanese beetle larva, and then getting the traps. Like, I mean, some people don't like the traps, if they swear against it. I've seen it work, but I spent some money. I put, I put some dollars into them traps, and circulate them around the space, and I've seen noticeable diminishment of like the infestations, because that's what affects most people, is that they plant these trees and then the Japanese beetles come in the summer and they devastate whatever trees you got. They eating everything. So
yeah, it can be brutal. Have you had any situations where you just have like piles of fruit on the ground? You know what I mean? Like you just can't get there. Like, how do you handle those issues? Have you made not some friends, some enemies with like wasp piles?
Well, I mean, so the biggest issue that we found with that is wasps.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? The wasps do become an issue if you don't get to the trees in time. But that's even if you get to the trees in time, you still have a wasp issue. What I found is that, even if there is fruit drop, it hasn't been such a significant problem for us. I guess maybe because we don't have an orchard where like every tree is the same thing, and it's all of this fruit from all of these trees on the ground all at the same time. So it's like I might got 2 pear trees at McDonough, and they're producing at the same time. So when I go to McDonough, it's like 2 trees, just fruit. Oh, I ain't get here in time. So these plums are here, but as soon as we know they're there, we're coming to get. So it's like it might be, maybe a week where there's a couple that dropped off, maybe 2 weeks, a couple of dropped off. But after that, we snatching up everything we can get. So it ain't really for us, it ain't really a big issue. And the same thing for communities, when people see that the fruits are there, some people have beat me to the trees. I'm like, yo, I was planning on getting over here, getting everything. But by the time I got back, somebody, had got their step ladder and a bag, and they went back. So.
And that probably, I imagine that feels like success, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Because it's not like these are like my trees. I mean, they're trees we've planted. So, and then again, we planted so many, so it's not really like, oh, dang, it's a big deal. Like we lost, the harvest off of 1 or 2 trees. It's actually, we planted these trees so that people in the community can eat. So I'm actually happy.
Yeah.
When people like see them and like, oh, I'm going to go grab that stuff up. That's the best. That's a good sign.
Yeah. Yeah. And people feeling ownership and engagement. That's amazing. That's actually one of the questions on this list. And this will be the last one, and then we'll do another quick fire round and we'll transition to live questions. But how are people interacting in these spaces? Is it mostly folks who are volunteering or like working and helping? Do you see folks just like come in and see the space and just want to be involved? I mean, I will say, especially when I went to Sankofa, I think I said this to you when we were there. I was like, I had never before understood the impact of art in a garden space. Like I've always just kind of thought of the garden as the art, but y'all have these incredible murals and like text everywhere, and you have the like sculpture of the Sankofa logo or image or however icon, whatever that would be referred to as, and that place is just, I mean, it's so visually powerful that I can't imagine that people aren't drawn in. But I am curious, like how people are interacting with the spaces in general.
Yeah, every space is different. I like to think that each space that we design and develop has a soul, a spirit of its own. You know, the people that are designing them are inflecting their vision and their energy into the space and then giving it life, right? And then people are interacting with that and it evolves as a result. Um, Sankofa is a special entity because it's not exactly a community garden. It's a space that we have a team that manages, you know what I mean? But the community gardens like McDonough, Broad Rock, those are truly like somebody can rent a plot and they got their own small situation in this greater whole. And so those are spaces where it's a different type of community interaction where people are connecting with each other on a communal, on a very like intrinsically, I don't know you, hi, you're my neighbor. How are you planting your tomatoes versus, you know, da 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 da. And the art does help. For a space like Battery Park, that's a public park. So people are engaging with that space on their own. They bringing their kids to the playground, kids going to the pool, somebody's playing tennis, you know what I'm saying? All of these different activities are happening. So in that space, like our work is more a passive thing that's a part of a greater whole, you know, as well. But in each one of those instances, it's just an opportunity for people to be reconnected to food, you know, that's growing in their community. We plant the trees in a lot of these situations so that there are uh perennial food sources, you know, for folks to engage with. And they're like, oh, yo, I can go, it's blueberries over here. Like, you know what I'm saying? And then like the kids,
Yeah.
you know, eat that and it just changes their relationship to where food's coming from because it's right there. It's like blackberries right here. There's you can pick this here, you can have this pear. Like that's a different energy for folks. It's like, oh, in the city, especially that, you know, not usual. And then also our theory, or not even theory, but our practice for all of the spaces is like if you're hungry, the food is free. Like we're not like gonna be like, what are you doing? You can't take that. You know what I'm saying? We're like, yo, if you came over here and you picked a tomato and you literally got a bag and you put the tomato, you was hungry, bro. So it's like, even if I planted it and I had like, you know, oh, that's like raised bed. It's like, bro, if I had the time and energy to be able to grow this food in this neighborhood outside of my house or wherever I'm staying at, this person just walked by with a paper bag and they picking stuff from out of the garden. They needed this shit more than me. You know what I'm saying? Because they were intentional about coming here and being like, yo, yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like, all right, cool. This is good, man. This is for you. And in that same vein, like I hear people be like, oh man, you know, the squirrels got my food. We don't go off about squirrels,
Yeah.
raccoons, you know what I'm saying? Groundhogs or whatever. Like, yeah, people might complain, but it seems like people have a different type of angst when the human come and takes the food. It's like, yo, but the human is that's your species, bro. They hungry too. You know what I'm saying? And I
Everybody needs to be
think
fed. Yeah.
about birds. The birds come and eat the cherries and stuff like that. They eat the blueberries. Well, I'm gonna get mad at the birds. I'm gonna kill all the birds. You know what I mean? I'm not doing that. So it's like, yo, this is it's here for you, man. Like if you're hungry, eat. Everybody gonna be mad at you about that.
Yeah. And you have community fridges at a couple of those spaces, right?
We do.
Yeah. That's
Community
awesome.
also adds to the flair of the situation.
Yeah. Amazing.
Situation.
Amazing stuff. Okay, so as we transition here, we're gonna do another just quick fire round of silly questions. But if you have a moment, y'all, while I'm asking Duran these, go to the Q&A function and add a question, and we'll start answering those shortly. And then Duran, also, I don't know how many folks you have there with you, but if those folks want to ask questions, but that we can certainly do that too. You just need to like reiterate the question for us. So
Yeah,
no.
we can
Yeah.
do it.
Cool. Okay. So silly question one. What was the last song that was stuck in your head?
um uh uh what
I
was
have
it?
kids, so I can cheat because they're always coming home singing annoying stuff.
We didn't start the fire.
It was always burning since the world's been
That's been in my I've been in my head the last couple of days, yeah.
Funny. That's one of those with so many words too. I think those ones like perpetuate worse because you're like trying to like what were all that? Yeah,
Yeah,
something about Joe DiMaggio in there somewhere.
yeah, I don't know. So that's the song in my mind.
What is a funny moment that you've had in one of your farm systems? Like, for example, I see that you've got some examples anyway. So, but like I know a friend who was working at Project Grows and they had a bunch of kids coming out to the garden and they were showing him how carrots grow. And they were like, these grow under the ground. And all of a sudden, like the kids, you know, because it's a market farm also, and all the kids are like pulling out just like all the carrots. They're like, oh, stop, we need those. But you know, at the same time, the kids are learning. It's all good. But I'm sure that kind of thing happens, and you've
Bro,
probably got some good stories.
all right, so Sankofa, right? So, all right. So Sankofa is big, man. It's huge, right? 5 acres is in the middle of the city. And so when we built Sankofa, I didn't have no idea like how people would like engage with it. We built the shade structure, you know what I mean, seating underneath it and the whole thing. We got the little patio heaters underneath there. And the other day, I go to Sankofa and it's not really funny. It's like a sad story, but it's still funny to me because I was like, damn. Somebody it was they had pulled a couple, man and woman, had pulled the couches together like a bed. You know what I'm saying? And we're like literally like asleep under the covers at Sankofa. I was like, yeah. It was the morning before class, right? And they had the heater on and everything, bro. So I had to be like, hey, how y'all doing? I'm Ron, I'm the coordinator here. And the guy was like, oh, he's like, oh, this is a nice space you got here. I was like, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. And he was like, oh man, we got class in a few minutes, man. I ain't trying to tell you I gotta leave, but you know what I mean, y'all kind of in the area that we can have class.
In the classroom.
Yeah, it was wild. And
That's great.
like, no, they literally had pulled that joint. I mean, I didn't even know it worked like that. I got that. Like, damn, it's like a bed. Okay.
They're innovators.
Yeah, big enough for two. I didn't even think about that. I was like, damn, that's what's up. Yeah, that was funny to me. Maybe not to everybody else because houselessness is not funny. I'm just, keeping it gangster. But it was just funny to me because like they didn't know who I was. I just rolled up on them like, what's going on, bro? Like, what you doing? It was like, oh, I'm sorry. I was like, no, apologize. You gotta skedaddle for it.
Yeah. Right on. Okay. So I would love to just let your folks over there ask questions if anyone has anything pressing, just to open it up.
We got go ahead, bro.
Do you prefer or do you recommend the bare root trees opposed to the trees that come in the package?
Good question.
Very good question. So first of all, I prefer what I can get my hands on. You know what I mean? Bare roots is probably they do better because it's less case of you having like root bound. But the other part about bare root trees is that as soon as you get them, it's time for them to put them in the ground. You can't like play around with waiting. You know what I'm saying? So I planted bare root trees, but they've been younger than the ones that I get that are already inside of a container. And I like to have older trees that I'm planting because it's less of a weight in terms of me getting to the fruit. But I will say that maybe planting bare root trees, they established themselves and they got a much more rigorous growth because I'm not having to cut through the roots in order to get them unroot bound. And I had to do a whole lot of root disturbance before I plant them. So if I had my choice, I would probably get bare root trees that were like well more established, but I know it's gonna be way more expensive. Let me just put that like that. Anybody else?
Nice.
Why? I think we did them in.
All right. All right. Well, if they come up, y'all, feel free. Feel free. We don't have a whole lot going on in the Q&A, but we didn't get to all the pre-prepared questions earlier, so I'm just going to keep moving through those. What about, are there any like unusual or underrated like agroforestry opportunities in the city you'd like people to pay more attention to? Whether it's, you know, empty lots, or I know there's like the urban foresters. I know there's a bunch of funding for more urban forestry right now. Like, what are you seeing? What do you think is underrated, underrepresented, like good leverage points?
Alley cropping. I'm big on the alley cropping action because look at, so in the city, vacant lots are abundant, right? And I know that there's a challenge and everybody wants affordable housing and stuff like that, but there's still, irrespective of that, there are vacant lots that exist. So if you can get your hands on, if you could work with a community land trust that can get their hands on vacant lots, the rectangular parcel is perfect for alley cropping. You know what I mean? You can go get you that grant that y'all spoke about, the $1,500 or the $1,000 per acre, and, you know, plant you about 20 fruit trees along the sides, and then get to growing in the middle, right? And, you know, building up your soil over the years, year 1, year 2, year 3. By year 3, you got harvest coming off the trees off the side, and they're also going to start providing shade for other high value crops that you could plant in the middle. You know, get busy with even some low tunnels, doing ginger, turmeric, stuff like that. And wow, you got a money making situation on a vacant lot in the middle of a community that doesn't have access to healthy food. I feel like that is a understated opportunity for folks. Also, food, urban food forests, just because of the amount of surplus land that Parks and Recreation might have access to in the urban context. The opportunity to build urban food forests is prevalent. It's like we want to reduce carbon emissions from all of this grass cutting that's happening inside of our cities anyway. So developing food forests inside of those spaces is like it's a prime opportunity. Plant those trees, get the tree diapers, get the understory going, planting those different shrubs and herbs and things like that, and watch it establish over time. And then boom, you know, you got a community that doesn't have access to healthy food, that also was lacking in green space, that also was lacking in urban tree canopy. And it could be a sustainable space that doesn't need a ton of maintenance because it's heavy in the tree, it's heavy in the perennial tree production. So those are two. For me, I'll stop there because those are the two ones that I'm championing. You know, in our work, it's like, yo, you're gonna build this farm, you want to grow some food, put some trees in there, you know, and later on, not right away, but later on, those will be your money makers. You'll be able to sell those pears, you'll be able to sell those apples, be able to sell those cherries at a premium in your community, because ain't nobody else gonna have them like you'll have them.
Yeah, great answer.
The value added products that come off of that. Like, come on, I got this brother that was coming through. He was going and pick the pears and the plums off of the fruit trees at McDonough, and he was mixing that with the hot peppers, making dips for the chicken wing.
Nice.
I mean, he brought them jumps to the farmer's market and sold out. Like the day I was like, wow. And he didn't have to buy the pears or the plums. Like, that was the main selling point, was like these hot peppers with these fruit mixes. And people went nuts for that stuff.
Yeah, that's a great story. A few questions just popped up live as you were sharing that. One from Tasha Way. Can you share a bit more about the process for working with the city for getting access to vacant land to use for urban farming? Any tips to share from your experience? They have often heard about how much red tape there is in that process. And y'all, I will say we're working on a land access episode of Ask an Agroforester too. So really excited to have more conversations about this beyond just this evening.
Yeah, I could say that working on a per department basis is better than going to your mayor's office about this type of stuff. If you start with your community centers, usually the community centers that are underneath Parks and Recreation and your community they have authority and they have agency over the green spaces that are in proximity to that community center. Whatever's in that window, they can do whatever they want to do with that. You know what I mean? So go to them first, and then, you know what I'm saying, if you got a so the second tier, go to the Parks and Rec, the heads of Parks and Recreation. They have surplus land in every municipality. So municipal government, the way government works, Parks and Rec has land typically that the city government owns, but it's under the authority of the Parks and Recreation, right? So you could go to Parks and Recreation and identify. The way I do it, I look at the parcel mapper, you know, pull up my municipal government's parcel mapper and figure out, okay, well, who owns the lot? If the Parks and Rec owns it, then I'm going to Parks and Rec, be like, hey man, you know, I see that this is a surplus piece of property. It's not exactly a park, but it's not a park. Y'all run it. Can we get an MOU to run it? Some municipal governments have parks, have community garden programs. Some don't. That's a long route. You might have to go through that if you feel like you want to rigorously like lock this type of stuff in. But Parks and Rec is the first line of offense. Second, the second, schools. Go to your school board. Your school board also has property. So the school itself is the school, but the school board runs the land outside of the school. And sometimes the school board got land that ain't even connected to the school. It might be down the road somewhere, and the school still owns it. The school board still owns it. So first, go to the school principal or whomever. You know, usually you need to go to the principal, get their approval. If the land is not connected to a particular school, go to the school board, talk to the superintendent of schools, and see if you can get some action there. Third, community land trusts in your community can be your friend. The folks that are focused on affordable housing usually have some desire for increasing the amount of green space, because neighborhoods are not just the houses that they're inside of, they're also the green spaces and parks and food and all that type of stuff that's a part of that neighborhood. So connecting with your community land trust is a great way to access land. The community land trust sometimes might be in collaboration with a land bank that's inside of your community. Land banks are not land trusts. They're usually a bridge between the community land trust and your municipal government. But those vacant parcels that the city might have, sometimes the city is dumping properties that are undeveloped or tax delinquent into the land bank, and the community can get access to them like that. Those are like the main ways. If last, I don't know about people's relationship. Because we've been doing the work for a long time, you know, we can go to our city council, we can go to our mayor, and we can be like, yo, y'all know about us, y'all seen the work, you know what I'm saying? What's up? Everybody don't have that kind of, you know what I mean? They can't just walk into the room and be like, yo, because they don't have no track record. But if you build those relationships with those smaller institutions early on, Parks and Recreation, the school board, and can establish that rootedness and demonstrate that you actually know what you're doing and that you're consistent on delivering on the impact that you're talking about, then over time, then you can walk into the mayor's office and be like, bro, we need you to transfer some land to our community land trust so that we can do what we've been doing, but do it in a more nimble way than what we've been doing before.
When you're asking for an MOU, do you have like a baseline, like time period or agreement that you shoot for? And also, people, when you're talking about trees and agroforestry, do people look at that differently than just, you know, like just, yeah.
Nah, not necessarily. They really don't. I mean, I've never had them like distinguish between the two, to be frank.
Nice.
Oh, and the third one, well, this is not municipal government, but just don't be afraid to talk to the churches in your community. Usually are also like the largest landowners in your city. But to answer your question, like with the MOU is usually asking for 5 to 10 years with an option to kind of like break apart, like give us at least 3 to 4 months if it's not working out. So
sure.
5 years at a minimum is what we ask for on the MOU with a municipal government agency. But this is the deal. if you're gonna do the MOU, you need to figure out how to change the policy in your city or wherever you at, municipal government, where you at. Because your MOU is great, but it's not as strong as an ordinance through your city council or your board of supervisors that allows for a process to be created for people to be able to access land that's surplus through the city. Don't just think about yourself. If you can get an MOU, you can get an ordinance through. That's,
Mm,
if you're gonna take the time to go walk this MOU through, it'll take just about the same amount of time for you to get an ordinance passed. So talk to your city councilman or something like that in order to help you get it written. And there's a ton of examples of cities across the country that have have ordinances that allow for citizens to apply for and permit public land for urban agricultural uses, so yeah.
wow, that's amazing. I never would have thought of those two as like being kind of on par. That's incredible. Um, and that it leads right into the next question from Cecilia Lapp-Stoltzfus, who says, are there any other cities or orgs implementing urban ag forestry that have been an inspiration or model for your work?
Yeah. I learned about organization. Well, so there's a couple different organizations that are doing similar work. They plant that, but they specifically plant trees.
Mm.
There's Trees Atlanta. There's another organization, Philly. Yeah, it's an organization in Philadelphia. I want to say it's Philly Orchards. I want to say it's Philly Orchards, but there's an organization in Philadelphia that all they do is plant fruit trees too. So those two, they've been inspiring, you know what I mean? Because they specify their work as tree planting. But I've been more inspired by Black-led organizations across the country that are doing urban ag as a whole. So you think about people like the Detroit Black Food Security Network, with Baba Malika Yakini. I think about people like K. Rashid Nuri, founder of Truly Living Well. Think about Chris Bradshaw with Dreaming Out Loud in Washington, D.C. I think about who else is out here? Xavier Brown with Black Dirt Farm Collective in Upper Maryland, D.C. Yeah, I mean, this a ton. Habasha in Atlanta with Kashawn Myers and crew, Ross Kofi. Like, all of these people have been inspirations for me. Baba Aduno Tariq from out of Washington, D.C., who recently passed away. Those have been my OGs and people that I've looked to for examples and how to do this type stuff. But the tree stuff specific, I think everybody is kind of like having an integrated approach, that it's not just the trees, it's not just annual crops. It's like this whole development of things. Yeah.
And do you want to, I mean, I could plug it for you, but you'd probably do a better job and just talk a little bit about the Black Space Matters series, because I found that really inspiring, and it's kind of, talking about what we're talking about now.
Yeah, so we do have a web series called Black Space Matters, where we interview Black organizations that are dedicated to the outdoors. Our second season focused specifically on farmers in the Central Virginia region, Richmond to be exact. So it's like 20-minute episodes of us like chopping it up with farmers that are growing in the city. One episode is really dedicated to food forests with Patrick Johnson of Airport Forest Farm. He talks about how he's integrating permaculture principles into his site. And then another episode is with good friend Allison Hurst, who's with Legacy Farms and their work around youth engagement and farming in Richmond as well. So yeah, check it out. That's what's up. Black Space Matters is about.
Yeah, and Katie in the background, awesome. Thank you. I was gonna say I have the link to that ready to go. Perfect. So y'all check that out. They've got a great playlist going on YouTube. Okay. Where am I at in my questions list? Oh, okay. Someone chatted this one directly to me. What kind of understory plants are you working with in the agroforestry systems specifically? What did they say? You have understory plants and crops in your systems.
So the understory plants are basically like herbs, flowers, and shrubs. And what we're planting a lot of, as like a herbaceous layer is like black-eyed Susans, yarrow. We're even doing like rosemary, lavender. Those are kind of like the usual suspects, right?
Mhm.
We can get our hands on those pretty readily, seeds and things like that. Then we might throw in some hibiscus, so that's been pruned, like kind of like flowering hibiscus shrub,
Mhm.
right? We got some lilac bushes that have been pruned into tree shapes. Um, Kiwis, but those are like um border
Mhm.
fence line stuff. Uh, yeah, man, we just let it kind of go wild. I ain't gonna lie to you.
I love it.
The herbs, it's really about for us, the understory is usually just flowers. I mean, like lamb's ear, just low-lying crops that just kind of like can keep the weeds back, but also kind of like, they flourish all year round. They're kind of doing their thing. And then when the spring, summer, and fall comes, it's like this ever-changing palette of color in between the fruit trees. So for us, the understory is more like a pollinator habitat than it is like, okay, you can get, lavender, or what I'm saying, or rosemary.
Yeah.
That's speckled in, but it's more about, okay, well, we want to increase the amount of pollination for these trees that
Yeah.
we're planting a ton of perennial flowers in that space.
Nice. Making them super functional. That's awesome. Okay, so I have a couple, let's see, I have three that kind of go together here that are all sort of like human sector, people power, community-based questions. So I'm going to pair two of these together. One is like, what are the biggest culture clash challenges you see with ag and urban areas? And that to piggyback with that, how have you kept all these hustles alive despite what's got to include some haters in the community? And how do you push through that in a positive way? Like these are such complex dynamics. Like how are you doing this? And you hung in there, you've been doing this for a long time. You've got a lot of projects, you got a lot of partners, like you're crushing it. What's your secret, Duran?
Oh, Jesus. Well, then you keep it frank, man. Like, I don't really recognize, like, we don't really have haters, to be for real, for real. Like, there's nobody doing what we doing. It's not a competition. You know what I'm saying? I haven't
Yeah.
I'm doing a thing, and I'm competing with myself. I'm trying to get this thing right. So, whatever anybody else got to say is like, okay. You got a mission too, my boy. You do that. So that's not a thing for me, for real, for real. I'm more so concerned about building the ecosystem of
Yeah.
people, right? And organizations that are dedicated to a shared vision, right? So I'm looking for that, and I find that more readily than I find anybody that has anything negative to say about what we're doing. As far
Which
as
really says something about your work too, to be fair. Like that really speaks to the kind of work that you're doing.
yeah, I'm mean online, but I'm nice in person. Keep it real, like, because I don't know you. If I don't know you, then it's a different. But if once we get into communication and dialogue, it's a whole different energy.
Yeah.
The other piece about rural versus urban, um, I feel like that's a false dichotomy. I feel like rural ag and urban ag is the same ag. It's just being done in different places. And so when people are like, "Oh man, rural agriculture is different than urban," I was like, "Yeah, man, you just got more space." But we're doing the same things. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you need a barn, I need some form of storage too, bro. Like, if you need to focus on soil fertility, I need to do that too. You doing cover crop? I need to do that too. Like, all the things that whatever is in the rural farmer's toolkit, it's in my toolkit too. I'm just applying it in a different way because I might have a smaller scale operation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I try not to get. I try to help. Hopefully, people understand that we're in this together. Food is food. We need to eat. I don't care where you live at. I just happen to be byproduct of 3 generations that decided to dip off from the rural community because of racial terrorism and a whole bunch of other bullshit. Like, I didn't have no control over that. I was born in the city, so I'm in the city. That's my context. You know what I'm saying? And I'm trying to make my context better. And when we move into the rural spaces, it's the same thing. Like, we just got 80 acres of land in Emilie, so we like, we here too. Like, we got deed and title of land in Emilie. So
Dang.
how you doing,
Congrats.
Trump country? Like, we saying too. So it's like, we got stuff in common. So irrespective of all of that other stuff, it's like, man, I grow food. I was just on a fly-in for the National Family Farm Coalition, and it was like dudes from Dakota with the cowboy hat and the boots in there. And I don't know, like, in another context, we might be across the room from each other, and I might be watching them like, I don't know what those guys is about. You know what I'm saying? But I know in that time, at that moment, we was both talking about food, and we was like, we need to figure out these policies to make sure that we can feed our families wherever we from. So I mean, I understand that there's some through lines. There's a thread that runs through it, and I'd be hoping that people can see that more than the difference is like, you might be white, all right, and you might want to stay over there with that. You know what I'm saying? But when it come down time for us to, feed it, when the apocalypse hits, everybody gonna have to eat. You know,
Yep.
and when the store shuts down, I want to make sure that my community has food too. You know what I'm saying? So we're not, so we're not starving over here and trying to run up on somebody with the Mac like to eat. This is just being real. You know what I'm saying? This is like, at the end of the day, everybody got to eat, and people do crazy things when they're hungry. And so I'm trying to make sure that our community is secure, resilient, and has spaces for food production, irrespective of whom or what, and what goes down will be good, whether it's rural or urban.
I love it. I could listen to you talk all night, Duran. You got it going on. So last question, we got about 5 minutes left, and we'll have a little bit of closeout. So last question, what are, in case we've got anyone in the audience who might have some of said things, what are some materials or resources that your projects need these days? Is there anything y'all are looking for or can use help with?
Yeah, we're always looking for, if you got horses and chickens, we're always taking manures for the sites. We're also taking donations if you're down for that action too. We're always looking to plant trees, so if you want to donate to plant a tree on our website, please do. We are always looking for people who are trying to co-conspire to decommodify the food system, right? And also especially folks that are looking to transition land into Black and brown hands. Like, let's just keep it real. Like, there's a bunch of people that got land, they ain't doing nothing with it.
Yeah.
And I know some people that's looking for it and could use it. And if you're about that reparations life, like, we have real time experience with how to make that work. Make sure you get your make sure that you get your proper practices to make sure that you get your taxes right when you're making that type of donation. We got people that in place that can help you make that move. So if you're really about making sure that our nation has food security, because you just saw that the ag census came out, we actually lost farmers this year, right? So I got a whole cadre of people that's trying to farm, bro. They ain't got the land though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some land. We try to make sure that America eats. Like, what's up? Like, that's
Right.
real as it can get.
Awesome. Do we have any last questions from your room?
They shaking their head now.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll take a minute to close out. Thank you so much. If people are really interested in getting involved with your project specifically, is there like a listserv, or is there like a join our newsletter website link or anything like that?
Naturalfestival.com.
Sorry, say it again.
go to thenaturalfestival.com. You can
Oh,
sign
I
up.
see it.
You can go to my Instagram, Duron Chavis, Happening Natural Festival, Sankofa Orchard, McDonough Community Garden, Broad Rock Community Garden. Like all of our links are right on the web. You can find me, Duron Chavis, if you want to Google me. My email is my name, duronchavis@gmail.com. I'm always happy to answer any questions for anybody that hit me up.
Awesome.
And you did,
Katie,
that's actually my homie Kamal in North Carolina. So yeah, shout out to him too, Sankofa Farm. So it's all good. It all comes back to the source.
awesome. Okay, Katie, do you want to share your screen real quick? Yeah. So just our next session, we're going to be talking with Adam Taylor, March 27th. He manages the Catawba Sustainability Center and is managing about 200 acres, gosh, almost single-handedly of silvopasture, alley cropping, and all kinds of demonstration site goodness. So we'll talk with him about what it's like to manage those really complex systems. And that is a Virginia Tech farm and demonstration site. So looking forward to that. You can join the listserv for this programming by just emailing me, eTweardy, I'm putting this in the chat, at asdevelop.org, and just say that you want to join the mailing list. But let's see, what's next slide, Katie? And also our last session is now live on YouTube. So y'all can check that out if you want today, if you just want to like roll right into another session. This specific session discussed 3 major funding projects that are going on. That Catalyzing Agroforestry project that Katie mentioned in the beginning of this program is discussed there, as well as 2 other federal projects. And there's a table that she just dropped the link in. That table compares the different opportunities. So if you heard this and you're like, man, this is all really interesting, I wonder if I might be able to get funding for something like this, click into that spreadsheet and you'll see a compare and contrast of those grants. For the opportunities that Duran was discussing today, mostly we'd probably be looking towards the Catalyzing Agroforestry project, which does have funding for food forests and urban initiatives and all kinds of great stuff. It covers any of the agroforestry projects or practices, I mean. So check that out. And we would really appreciate it. I know that only like 2 people are going to do it, but know that we would really appreciate it if you took this short evaluation that we dropped in the chat, because we're all about the evaluative feedback here. We want to hear what you liked, what you didn't like, what we can do better so that we can make these sessions as great as possible for you. So thank you so much, Duran. Happy to have you here again. Just a privilege to get to hear from you this evening, and we really appreciate your time. Thanks everybody for showing up, and we'll see you next time.